This is the Buffalo Plus Podcast, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
And we're happy to have back with us again one of our regulars covering all the major sports in Miami, Will Manso, a busy man at WPLG in Miami. Will, thanks for being back with us.
It's my pleasure, and it has been a busy year, but it's funny how it kind of started Dolphins and Bills to the playoffs. That kind of triggered the whole year of all the madness that came.
Let's talk about the 70-point elephant in the room. Really, Will? 70 points? What was that like?
Yeah, it's funny. I was at the Dolphins training facility on Monday for the day after, and they call it Victory Monday, and it's always a good place to be if you're a Dolphin fan or if you're covering the team, because there's a lot of good to talk about. But this was one of those where I even asked McDaniel, like, most Mondays even after you say, okay, this didn't go well, what could you have done better? What do you learn from this? And my question to McDaniel was like, what do you try to improve on for 60 points in a game? And I think everybody's just kind of in shock. It was the story of the NFL this weekend, as you know, Mike. I mean, I think everybody got back to the locker room after their game or was prepping for their game if it was a late game and said, does that say 70? Like, it just doesn't make sense. How long you cover football. I know you've covered it a long time, as have I, and we've seen some crazy games. I've never seen an NFL team score 70. I've never been a part of a team that scored 10 touchdowns in a game. It was just like McDaniel called it a perfect storm. It was a perfect storm. Unfortunately, a storm against Denver, but certainly a beautiful storm for the Miami Dolphins.
And of course, Will, it begins with Tua. I mean, after these three games, he has to have immense confidence.
I think, you and I have had this discussion, probably half dozen times on this show. It's always been the progression of Tua, and that's an important question for every team as your quarterback. And with Tua, it's been different because it was like, okay, the health was such a question, and can he overcome that? And then everybody questions his arm strength, and how's he going to do with Tyreek Hill? Can he get the ball to his weapons and Jalen Waddle? I think he's answered all that. Health is for every player, every game. But, I mean, I think the talent he's answered. But I think to your point, Mike, and I think to the point of the listener and viewer, is that Tua's not just more confident that he's ever been on the field, he's more confident that he's never been off the field. And you may wonder, like, okay, why does that matter? But I think it does. I think it matters in the preparation and the mindset of a quarterback. I don't think he thinks anymore about the outside stuff. I don't think he cares anymore. He used to say he didn't hear it, but we know he did. And I think he's quieting, or for a better way of putting it, shutting up so many people, that there's a certain swag and confidence. When Tua talks to the media, when Tua talks to his teammates, when Tua just talks out in public, that, hey, man, I'm here. I've arrived. I'm one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, he doesn't talk in any way of like, oh, we're trying to learn. We're trying to get through stuff. He knows what he is doing. He may not brag about it, but he knows it. And I think it's changed his mindset week in and week out, where he expects to put up big numbers. He's not surprised by it.
And that confidence really comes through on some of the plays, like Mahomes-like plays, like the no-look shovel pass for the touchdown.
I think that's a good example, and there have been a bunch of breakdowns, especially on social media, but national broadcasts, about the quick decisions Tua makes. Those are things that are just not natural in most quarterbacks. I mean, those are that make it look so easy. That pass was a perfect example, but other parts, I think the biggest advancement in his play, Mike, is his quickness and recognition to the next progression. Tua will get the ball and almost like in a split second, which sounds impossible, to look left, look center, look right, throw left, But you watch it on tape, and you watch it again, you watch the play over in slow motion, and it's just so quick. Oh, nobody opened there, nobody opened there. Oh, wait, somebody opened there, boom, ball's out. And I think that's that. I mean, again, that as a defense, you're preparing for that. You always say, like, okay, well, he's not good at his first read. He's not good at this. You take away that. I think you and I have had that discussion where Tua's first read was almost always where he wanted to go, and he'd get in trouble then if he couldn't get to that first guy. That's not the case anymore at all. I mean, he's reading through his progressions and finding guys everywhere.
All right, tell me about Mike McDaniel, because as a play caller, the guy seems to have everything working. He's got his speed. He's got his quarterback. He seems to have the right pace. Everything right now Mike McDaniel is doing is working, right?
Yeah, I think Mike is at his peak right now as an offensive play caller and as a designer. And I think one of the things about him is we knew that he's a kind of a mad scientist in the way he preps things for games. But I think he's gotten so many guys. There was a stat by Next Gen Next Gen Stats that came out, I think it was yesterday, where the top 6 speeds so far through 3 weeks, as far as the ball in your hand speed, were all Miami Dolphins. And And you would say, okay, well, they got Tyreek Hill. It's Tyreek Hill. Only 2 of them were Tyreek Hill. They have Raheem Mostert, who can fly. And how about Devon Achane, who all of a sudden, you see the after the third round, there was a 4-3. And what's wild is that on that list, Jalen Waddle wasn't even on the list yet because he's been banged up. But he can fly. So I guess to the point of Mike McDaniel is you got a guy who loves to design plays, loves to put guys in motions, loves to really confuse the defense. And then you have that kind of speed. So when you combine the smarts of McDaniel and then the speed of those players, and then the quickness, decision-making of Tua to get the ball to those guys in space that have speed, I mean, that's a lot of offense. Trying to slow down a lot of different parts that are working well now.
And when you cover the Bills, we're always talking about Tyreek Hill and what he did to them when he was in Kansas City, now what he's been doing since he's been in Miami. And honestly, Will, he looks as good or better than he's ever looked.
And look, and we can say it, and it's not a bad thing because I think a lot of people want to discredit Tua by saying, well, he's got Tyreek Hill. But I mean, Patrick Mahomes had Tyreek Hill too. We can all agree Patrick, great, future Hall of Famer, best quarterback in the NFL. I think with Hill, again, it goes back to what I was just saying about the perfect storm. Another thing you could add to that is the offensive line. Tua needs time to let Hill progress because Hill will get doubled. I think people mistaken the fact he's wide open to think that he's getting single covered. Sure, sometimes McDaniel puts him in motion where he gets kind of lost running across the line and breaking out, and he's on one guy, and that guy's got no chance. But more often than not, they're trying to blanket him. I mean, Bill Belichick tried it a couple weeks ago, and it sort of worked. He didn't have huge eye-popping numbers, but he scored a touchdown. So I think he's at a level now where there's no margin for error as a defense on Tyreek. Sure, if you blanket him and you pay attention for all the 75 plays that Dolphins are out there, great. But there's going to be 8 or 10 where you don't, and they're finding him. And when you get him in space, that the 1 or 2 that he busts free, as he did for the touchdown to open the game against Denver, as he's done throughout his Dolphins career, you're not going to catch it. It's impossible to stop. So and he says it. He's like, not 1, 2, 3 guys can stop me. And as crazy as that sounds, he's right. The only way to stop is to get to Tua or to blanket and keep everything in front as the Patriots tried to do. But again, that's more like death by paper cuts than the quick, long, stab, I guess, when you get Tyreek out of the open field.
And like the Dolphins need more speed, but Achane, where did he come from? And was he doing this back in training camp and in the preseason?
Yeah, and by the way, yesterday we found out after calling him Achane throughout his career and went by Achane in college and he got drafted as Achane, we've all called him Achane. Apparently it's Achane. So now we have to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, by the way, that's not your mistake. We learned this yesterday on Achane. So I'm just trying to get used to saying it the other way because it's Achane for months. So, but that's not the point. But to your question, they drafted him because of the 4.3, sub 4.4 speed. And he dealt with some injuries throughout camp, early in training camp and the exhibition season. And I don't think we got a chance to really see him a lot, but they had him on the back burner for this role. He was never going to be the primary guy, but I don't think Mike McDaniel wants a primary guy. He said yesterday when he asked about Devon, he said, look, we have faith in all these guys. And sure, a game like that will get you more playing time, but we think we have, when they're healthy, 4 or 5 capable backs. In this case, with Wilson out, with Ahmed out, it is Mostert, happens to be, by his claim, the fastest running back in the NFL. But I think just regular, he is one of the fastest. You don't have to hear from him. But then you say Achane and what he did and what we saw. I mean, the kid had 203 yards and 4 total touchdowns in his first extensive playing time in the NFL. And I know it's the Broncos. I know it's a team that's struggling, and I know they were terrible at tackling, but that's impressive stuff. So, yeah, it's just another weapon of the arsenal, but it goes back to the speed theory. They drafted him because of that speed in the 3rd round. That's what they expected out of Texas A&M. That's the kid and the speed they wanted out of the backfield. And when he's healthy, my goodness, he's a special player.
Yeah, speed all over the place. This is a brief aside here because now it's Achane. That's good to know for this week. But you also have some of the best names. And he's not even one of the top. I mean, I look at the guys we've seen a little bit of. Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft, and Robbie Chosen. I mean, those are some pretty – it's like you wrote a script and those were the names you put for guys. And they've all contributed at some point.
Yeah, they have Braxton. I'm glad you mentioned Braxton. This is a University of Miami guy. Braxton's an alumni of Kane. Braxton's been a perfect fit for this team because, with Braxton, he returns punts, and then he can be that third down another guy. If you're really going to blanket Tyreek, especially with Jalen Waddle out, it gives Braxton opportunities to find space somewhere on the field to get open and make a play. he's made some really nice plays during this 3-0 start. Again, not eye-popping numbers, but nice plays. Chosen's gotten playing time because of the injury. Craycraft is hurt now. He's not going to play in this Bills game. Sounds like he's going to be out probably a few weeks. But these are all guys, again, Mike, we're talking about these are the secondary weapons, and these are quality players. When your primary weapons are Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, that's some scary stuff, at least on offense, of what the Dolphins can do.
All right, let's switch over to the defense. I mean, there's been so much attention on the 1,650 yards in 3 games. I think that's NFL record, maybe. Is it an NFL record for 3 games, or it's yet?
Games, I believe it's the best. It's certainly the best in Dolphins history, but I believe it's the top. But they're coming off a game that had 726 yards of total offense. Third.
Yeah, it is crazy. How are they on defense? What would you say about it? I mean, when you put up 70, I mean, you could. It doesn't matter, but what would you say about the way the Dolphins defense has started this year?
Work in progress, and I think, anytime you talk work in progress, you want to see progress, right? You want to go the right direction, not the wrong direction. We saw their worst game in the first game against Chargers out in LA. They allowed 34 points. They didn't tackle well. Chargers ran the ball right down their throats, over 200 yards rushing. In Vic Fangio's defense, in defense and defense, but defending them first, is that it was the first time. I think he was trying to work out some things and try some different things. The last 2 games, and look, Vic comes with a great reputation, as he should. He's one of the premier defensive coordinators in the league. They seem to be getting it. As far as personnel, you talk about Christian Wilkins who's looking for a big contract. Here's a guy I think a lot of fans will talk about. You talk about Xavier Howard, who's an interception machine throughout his career. You look at the players like Javon Holland, who forced 2 fumbles, young guy out of Oregon who's really come into his own. The one guy who's been playing really well is Andrew Van Ginkel. You always want to have a backer and a scheme to make plays. Van Ginkel's been all over the field, and I think that's been a big plus the last couple of weeks. There are always guys, right, that feel more comfortable in certain systems with certain coaches. Van Ginkel looks like a perfect Vic Fangio guy. So his development and progression, I think, has helped as well. They don't have Jalen Ramsey. He's going to be out till likely at least the last quarter of this season. So there is questions there about Eli Apple and that 3rd, 4th corner rule. What happens? There are places you could try to exploit them, but Mike, they've got talent on defense, and they certainly have a good defensive coordinator, a bright guy in Vic Fangio, who's got a proven track record for them to continue to improve game.
Yeah, Van Ginkel honestly looks to me like the kind of guy the Patriots would have had in their prime, making plays, and you're like, who is this guy? Yeah. And he's been really good. Last year we talked about Miami coming up to Buffalo late in the year and then the playoff game and doing it, with Skylar Thompson and hanging in there. How much do you think the way they played, and we talked about, I thought Dolphins played really well in Buffalo and maybe could have, if not should have, won at least one, if not both of those games. Does that impact them coming in now? I mean, I know this group has been together for a little bit and they've played in Buffalo, but, to go there and play the way they did without everybody has to impact them in some way coming up here in October.
Look, they're going to say all the right things this week. They'll get back at it tomorrow. But yeah, even yesterday, Christian Wilkins said nothing but great things about Josh Allen and the player that he is. And then Mike McDaniel asked him directly about, hey, they're a little different this week. That's a team that knocked you out last year in the same place they knocked you out. And this is, you were close, but this is the kind of team that you have to get over the hurdle, the hump, so to speak. And he said, I'm sure internally there are guys in the locker room that feel that way, but we have so much respect for this team because we know that on merit alone, they're a great team. They're a tough team. So while there probably will be that feeling of revenge, that feeling, hey, that's a team that knocked us out. I think more than anything, Mike, is the feeling to understand that that's a good football team that's in their division. And if they want to get to where they want to get, they have to start winning games like this. And McDaniel mentioned how hard it is to go into Orchard Park and win in any scenario. So they know, they understand the challenge at hand. They're not going to try to make more than it does. But look, for them to really get to that next step, and that's winning the AFC East, having a chance to, be a 1 or 2 seed in the AFC, they've got to win games like this, even if it's early in the season.
Yeah, and I'm thinking more, maybe not even as much revenge, but just the idea of saying, a lot of times we've seen in this recent time where you come into Orchard Park, the defense gets going, Josh Allen gets going, and it has become, over the last 5 years or so, an intimidating place. I don't see why the Dolphins would be intimidated at all. They were there in the throes of January in Orchard Park. I'm not saying they just walk in and think it's easy. They got to feel like, hey, we've done it at least close in really adverse situations and hung in there. And now they come in there as right now probably the number one team in the league.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that. I do think that there's a certain level that you can grab from that game. But I think what you're going to hear is what McDaniel said yesterday is that game is last year. You hear the cliches. We can't, nothing from last year is really going to tell us much about this year. But I do think internally there is a confidence. Like, man, we went in there. We went into Buffalo. We dealt with some snow. Remember, it started snowing in the second half. We dealt with the cold weather. There was the emotion from DeMar and all the things that were going on. And the Dolphins overcame all that with a backup quarterback and had a legitimate chance to win a playoff game on the road. So, yeah, I think there's part of that. But I also know that they know that if they make mistakes, if they turn the ball over, if they have penalties, Buffalo can steamroll you. Doesn't matter if you scored 70 the week before. So they have to be ready for that.
I always ask you to sort of try to take the temperature of Dolphin fans. You've talked before about the same old Dolphins. You talked before they got to prove it. It's 3 games in. But where would you say the fans are now with this team?
I mean, look, they were 3-0 last year, and they're 3-0 this year. But this year feels completely different because number one is you have a full year of body of work under Mike McDaniel. You saw they went through the ups and downs, the 2 injuries last year. They rebounded to make the playoffs. And as we talked about, they had that close game. Tua goes through everything. They come back, and they're this machine on offense. So I think fans right now are probably the highest level of confidence I've ever seen from a Dolphin all the years I've covered. And you would have a discussion. I got here, my first year here was Dan Marino's last year in 1999. And even then, those were really good teams. You're talking about Hall of Fame quarterback, very good defenses throughout the next few years with Jimmy Johnson. But there has never been, in my time here, confidence from fans that they have now. They legitimately think they have a Super Bowl team because they believe they have the best offense in football. Right now, it's hard to argue that. I mean, there are other offenses that are great, but this is a machine right now. And they also feel that they have the right parts on defense, where it's not just like, man, the defense lets you down. You're going to lose these 41-38 games somewhere along the line. So I would say, Mike, it's the highest it's ever been, but it is only week 3, and a visit to Buffalo can humble the best of them really quick. So I think people are at the same time are saying, let's see how we feel come Sunday at 4:30.
What do you think of this new, and I'm joking saying this, game manager version of Josh Allen? And I kid because, he had that bad first game, and then he's talked a lot about playing smarter. Now, he's still made Josh Allen plays, but he's been slightly more conservative. From the outside, you guys watching that, and then this defense playing, so these last 2 games at some of the highest level they've played with Sean McDermott calling the plays. What's the perception now of the Bills, who are the team to beat in the division? But like you said, the Dolphins come in as, pretty confident.
I think when you look at the breakdown, right, I think Dolphin fans, we're talking about the fan portion of the team itself. Dolphin fans are like any fans, irrational, because all fan bases are that way, rivals. But I think they're also realize that, the team you have to worry about in this division is Buffalo. They'll talk, and what happened with the Jets, obviously Aaron Rodgers losing him stings for the Jets, and it changes the dynamic of that team. We already saw what the Patriots are, which I think are kind of a middle of the pack team. Dolphin fans know what the Buffalo Bills are. They're a great team. And as you said, when the defense plays well and Josh can avoid mistakes. And I think when it comes to Josh Allen too, even when Josh was first starting in the league, he always had big games against the Dolphins. And trust me, Dolphin fans remember that. And I remember being at Hard Rock, seeing him for the first time. I'm like, man, this guy's kind of a wild card in the way he plays. And he's kind of the throws he makes. But my goodness, he's running everywhere and making throws on the run. Every time he's sacked, he throws the ball down the field 60 yards. It gets completion. I mean, he is a special player, and they're aware. But more importantly, the players are aware. I mentioned Christian Wilkins yesterday. There is a great amount of respect for the player Josh Allen is, for the plays he can make. And yes, everybody knows he's prone to a mistake and turnovers, and it can change the course of the game. But if he realizes that and plays a smarter game and avoids those mistakes, we know what he could do in moments that, close games, big plays. So everybody's aware that this is going to be the true test for this team. And by the way, my Dolphins have a lot of true tests. They've got, obviously, the Bills twice. They still have the Chiefs on the schedule overseas. They got the Eagles on the schedule. They got the Cowboys on the schedule. If the Dolphins are going to get to where they want to go, they're going to have to go through pretty much every team they're going to eventually have to face to get the big playoffs.
Well, we'll see how it goes. All right, I got last couple of things to ask you. As the guy who covers everything in Miami, you have some superstars down there. You got Jimmy with the Heat. you've got Messi, and Tua. Is Tua one of those guys? Has he become one of those guys in Miami now? Or where does he rank in with the fan bases, like the people that are all in on all the teams? Like, where is Tua?
He's right at the top. And, it's hard because you can't put anybody above Lionel Messi because he's probably the biggest sports superstar in the world, right? But world feeling toward soccer and toward football and the passion is different than in the United States, and it's surely different than Miami, where Inter Miami's been around for just a few years, and they play in Fort Lauderdale. They haven't been a very good team the last few years. Then Messi just jumps out of the scene, and it just for star power alone, it grabs. So he is the biggest star in town. But I think the most popular person in town, you could argue, is Tua. Tua and Tyreek are so popular, and Jimmy Butler, because people love what he's done with the Finals, 3 Eastern Conference, appearances in 4 years. But I think Tua being starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins in a town that loves the Dolphins, that has been craving for someone post Dan Marino to take them to the promised land and take them to the chances of winning a Super Bowl. I think you could say that Tua is probably the most significant, impactful guy in this town because people are so desperate to see the Dolphins, win playoff games and compete for Super Bowls. And he, no argument from anyone, is the key to get that done.
Love it. I mean, I covered this team a long time. It was Kelly and Marino. It was phenomenal. And I think we got it here. I think we got it with Allen and Tua. And I think, hopefully for his health, it's good because I want to see. I think Bills and Dolphins is the matchup. The Jets looking for their moment. The Patriots had theirs, but this could go on for a while, right?
Yeah, you would think so. I think it's pretty clear Tua's going to get his big contract, barring setbacks. And again, I hate saying that because you can say that for any player,
right?
And every player in the NFL is at risk getting but given Tua's injury last year and the question of concussion, but I think, he's going to get his big deal. Josh has got his big deal. I mean, these teams seem to be run well background-wise. Bills clearly have their coach. The Dolphins feel like they've got their coach. They are in position to have a, 3 to 5 to 7 year rivalry over, in that span where they're going to be not just competing for AFC's titles, but Super Bowls and AFC titles. And I think that's why games like this matter so much. And fans are aware that these are the games you got to win because they'll make the difference between being the 1 or 2 seed or having to go on the road as the Dolphins did last year trying to win Buffalo.
Yeah, well, it's going to be great. It's the first of 2, maybe 3 again that I think is going to be outstanding. So I always ask this if people want to follow you because you got great stuff on there about NBA and, like I said, SC, whatever is going on in Miami. How can they follow you on social media?
Easiest way is just at Will Manso. My name, WILLMAN. I try, like you said, there's a lot. It's funny because they're seasonal, right? Where, okay, this is the time to talk about Dolphins. This is the time to talk about. I mean, here we are in Dolphins season. The Marlins in the last week of the year, and they're in a playoff hunt. Inter Miami's playing for a championship tomorrow, U.S. Open Cup final with potentially Messi playing again. I mean, that's crazy to think. The Heat media day and training camp starts next Monday, Tuesday. All these rumors about Damian Lillard. The Panthers had their first exhibition games yesterday. They played in a Stanley Cup final. I mean, it's been a crazy year. But again, I go back to Orchard Park, Bills, Dolphins. That's where it all got started before it got crazy with that matchup. So it'll be fun to watch it again on Sunday.
We're looking forward to it, and thanks again. And we look forward to talking Bills and Dolphins for the rest of the year. So thanks very much to Will Manso from WPLG in Miami. And thanks to all of you for being with us. We'll have content all week long leading up to the game. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe what you think of this start by the Miami Dolphins, which has been so impressive. All right, thanks again, and we'll see you next time here on Buffalo Plus.